We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet to share these conversations on the Vegan Compass podcast.
We extend our respect to elders past and present, as well as any of our listeners and guests. Hello and welcome to the Vegan Compass podcast, unveiling truths, inspiring change. We are your hosts, Rick Allport and Mackenzie Cross.
From wherever you're listening, please be sure to like and subscribe to support this podcast. Now to the episode.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Vegan Compass podcast. We're so excited to have you all joining us again this week. I just wanted to drop a little reminder that if you're enjoying the podcast, it would mean so much to us if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or like and subscribe on YouTube. That way we can get the podcast out to more people. So we are your co-hosts, Rick Allport and Mackenzie Cross. Who are we talking to today, Rick?
Well, first up, I'd just like to say that this is a really early morning podcast for us, so this is kind of unusual, and I'm pretty stoked that we're awake and we got everything set up in time. But it's for a really, really good reason. Our guest today, I have taken so much inspiration from. I just find her work absolutely incredible. She's an amazing photographer. She is based in Canada. She goes around the world. She does incredible stuff. We are so very honoured to have her here today. So, Jo-Anne McArthur, we're going to start off with two questions. Who are you and what do you do?
What an intro. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so happy to be here speaking with you both. And thank you for getting up early and not making me get up early. I wouldn't do well if I was getting up early.
Thank you for staying up late.
So the question is, who am I and what do I do? Well, I'm someone who cares very much about animals. People say, Jo-Anne McArthur, you must love animals. And sure, I do. But more importantly, I have a great concern for animals, how we treat them and how we mistreat them. And I channel that through photojournalism and through my organization. It's a nonprofit called We Animals.
Oh, well, look, honestly, We Animals it's just amazing. The photographs and the video stuff that you have online, it just opens people's minds if people look and they just see the emotion that goes into this stuff. And I think I can safely say you guys are the best in the world at doing this. It's really quite amazing. But when we're going to take you back a little bit, when did you first become interested in photography?
Thanks for saying that about We Animals, first of all. And I'm looking forward to telling everyone more about what we do on the day-to-day and how we do it. But when I first got interested in animals, or was it when I first got interested in photography?
In photography.
I think that I was always pretty obsessed with looking at pictures. And I knew the family albums by heart. My parents' friend made a wildlife photography book, and I knew those images by heart. You know, some kids want to go outside and play basketball, or like, no, I would go to the basement and just look at pictures. And it evolved from there. I was looking at the family albums and wildlife photography. I got really into street photography, just people out in the world documenting day to day. I'm pretty curious about who we are and why we do the things we do. We're a strange species and we mess up a lot of things, and we also create a lot of beauty. And the camera, I started picking up the camera because it sort of gave me access to the lives of others. And was a history of photographers who do that, like the Magnum photographers, Seven Agency. So they go out into the world and bring these images back to us and show us how we are. And I think that helps improve us if we can see ourselves through a different lens, literally. And from there, I got really interested in conflict photography. Who are these brave photographers who are going out and putting themselves in danger to bring images home that hopefully, would help us take part in changing the wrongdoings of the world. And I saw, though, that there was a big gap when it came to animals. I had spent my life looking at photography and also looking at animals and looking at wildlife photography, but there was no room for the kind of work that I do and that we do at We Animals. So we call it animal photojournalism. We call it that because we didn't really fit into the photojournalism world, which is about the human condition. And I loved that work. But when I came along and said, oh, but look at my conflict photography with animals, it's like, this is unusual. Like, you must love animals. You must be sentimental. This is a pet photography thing, or we don't know where this fits. And then same with the wildlife world. I didn't quite fit in there. And that's because wildlife is and conservation photography is also exclusive to certain species. But what about the billions of animals that we consume and that are hidden and who are sentient and whose lives deserve to be seen and considered and respected? And I saw this major gap in the photography world and in the media and in the public conscience. And so away I went with animal photojournalism. And it's not to say that other people weren't doing it, but it didn't really have a home. It didn't really have a name. And I'm going to pause there because I just threw a lot at you there.
That's all right.
But it's really interesting where you came from, because in a similar way, my father was a photographer, and I kind of followed what he did, and he was into photojournalism. He ended up going into movies and everything. But he actually, one thing I never realized until a lot later in life, he was at the end of World War II, and he would be in the planes above all the battlefields, hanging out of the plane, taking photographs out the back of the plane. So it was all wide open, and he was just strapped in, hanging out there and taking photos. And I'm like, how amazing. It's mind-blowing what people have done in the past. So yeah, I can see where all your influences have come from.
Okay, so I guess our next question is, what shaped your path into animal photojournalism? But do you feel like you already answered that, or is there more you could say?
Yeah, there's more I can say.
Okay, cool.
So there are other things that shaped my path into animal photojournalism, or APJ for short. And it was the beginning of my understanding of the sentience of animals who weren't cats and dogs and, the animals in the zoo, the animals in pictures. And that started because my mom moved out of the city for a while, and she had 2 dogs and a cat, but she bought 10 chickens, and they were layer hens, and they just roamed around the yard. And so I had the opportunity to get to know chickens, and not a lot of people have that opportunity. And I'm so glad I did, because I realized soon that they had complex personalities, and they were no different than the dogs and the cats. The chickens wanted to come in the house. The chickens wanted cuddled, or, they had their pecking order. They had their different personalities. Now, chicken was my favorite food at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, no more chicken. And it escalated from there, in fact. So once I started thinking about the animals we eat, then I got my hands on some pamphlets from PETA. Kudos to PETA for their reach and for their advocacy. A lot of us became educated about, farmed animals because of PETA. So I met the hens, stopped eating them, got my hands on some PETA pamphlets, learned about factory farming, saw that the pictures weren't really good, and that we needed the movement, and animals needed really, really strong images to reach people. And I just saw that there was, like I said before, like this really big gap. And I knew that campaigners needed better images, and they probably needed professional photographers, or at least amateur professional photographers. A lot of the people who go out into the field, obviously kudos to them, aren't professional photographers, or don't know how to use a good camera, and haven't been trained on how to get really moving images. And away I went. So that was in 1998 when I went chickenless, and then pescatarian, vegetarian, and then vegan. So 22 years ago. And those are some of the things that shaped my path towards animal photojournalism.
It's interesting, your journey, because again, how the interconnectedness thing happens here. I was an animal rescuer, but I was rescuing animals on one hand, but eating them on the other hand. And there's one time I picked up a bird that had been shot, and I picked it up thinking it was dead, and I was going to take it out. And the bird, he or she, lifted his or her head up and looked at me, and I just went, "That's it. I know that I have to stop, and I have to become, well, that stage vegetarian." Then I heard about all the horrors of the dairy industry, and that was easy. Yeah. So I think for me, probably about 30 years ago now, I did the whole vegan thing and haven't looked back.
I love hearing people's stories because everyone sort of has that different awakening.
Yeah. This one's been vegan since how old?
I was 15.
15. Yeah. She's been an animal activist since she was 15.
I don't think I was doing activism then. I was in high school. And I don't think I was actively doing activism. I mean, people knew I was vegan, but...
Yeah, but that's kind of like the beginnings of your activist journey.
Yeah, it was when I moved out of home and was at uni and discovered other people who care about animals too.
So we've kind of talked about the core mission of We Animals project, but can you fill us in more about that, when it was launched and how it's evolved since it first started?
Sure. Well, it was a personal project for about 15 years. I was traveling 6 to 8 months a year, saving up all my money from my commercial work. I shot over 500 weddings, and all of that money went towards the good stuff, which was documentary work, which no one was going to pay me for. It's really niche and kind of still is. But people were contacting me from all around the world saying, "Hey, I saw your image here or there. Can I have it high res? I'd like to print it. I'd like to use it for XYZ." And they had to wait a month sometimes till I go back to my hard drive so I could email it to them. Like that was no good. And the goal of all the work that I was doing was to help as many people as possible have good images to tell the stories of animals and change hearts and minds. And so the first step was to start an archive, which has now evolved into our stock site. And that was getting all of my work publicly available. I had some friends who were saying, "You should fundraise, you should, start a Patreon," or people would want to donate to what you're doing. And I was way too proud for that until someone basically strong-armed me into it. And lo and behold, lots and lots of people donated to We Animals, the project. I was amazed. And with that money, I was able to do less commercial work. I was able to hire someone part-time. I was able to bring a videographer on shoots, and so it began. So it began evolving towards a nonprofit photo agency whose mission is to tell animal stories through our photojournalism. So now we have 12 staff, full-time, part-time. We have over 150 photographers who we give assignments to, whose work we license and make available for everyone, who receive mentoring to improve their animal photojournalism. And we have, I'm forgetting the number, I think it's about 40,000 photos and videos now available on the stock site, and it gets used globally every single day. So that's what we want: maximum strategy, lots of reach, comms department, fundraising department, stock department, assignments department. Oh my goodness, so much responsibility, but it's going well. And now, if I can add, so sorry, did I say this already? That like, this is what I wanted when I was young. I needed We Animals. Yeah, and there were agencies that I joined. I joined Redux Pictures in New York. I would have loved to have joined Magnum or Seven. But Magnum, like, they just weren't so interested. And obviously my work wasn't as good back then either, but they were like, this animal thing, maybe not. And so we needed a We Animals. And We Animals, the project, is now We Animals, the photo agency. And I'm so glad people are joining our family and our community.
Well, we both, in the work that we both do, we use your images, and I got to say, they, as I said before, they are the best images that you can ever get.
So powerful. And do you know how hard it is to find pictures of fish and the fishing industry? But your work, you've got such amazing photos that really highlight all different animal species, all the horrible things we do to them, and it's such an effective way to tell the story of those animals that are often hidden by the industry.
Saying that, especially about the fish. Part of how we decide what assignments we're going to do is we look at what the animal advocacy space is asking for. whether it's the grassroots groups or academics or the big organizations. And we look at what images are needed, what species are needed, and in which regions. And so we always have a gap list that we're trying to check off. And we did find that a lot of groups were asking for fish images. So we have a lot of fish images now.
Amazing. They're the ones that I have used a lot.
Now, this next question that I'm going to ask is really pertinent to me, because in 2020, I had a massive stress-related heart attack because I was 24/7 animal rights and animal activism and animal rescue, and it all became too much. And I ended up with PTSD from everything I'd witnessed and seen. And this brings me to, I don't know how you do this, but it brings me to that your work often brings to light the stuff that people don't want to see. So how do you emotionally and mentally prepare to bear witness to so much suffering?
Well, I think only so much preparing you can do. And I think that apart from preparing psychologically or emotionally, people who do this are really driven and passionate. And that is the leading thing. That is the thing that makes us go to where the ducks are being shot, bring us to where the fires are burning or inside factory farms. We are passionately driven to do this thing that very few people do. And we know that very few people do it, which, ignites us even more. And we know intellectually that it's going to be difficult. We'll see terrible things and it'll be very sad. But as you know, it's hard to prepare for once you're really there. You're watching ducks fall from the sky for no reason because they've been shot for a pleasure hunt. Pigs in gestation crates, dead babies, dead chickens, terrible cramped conditions. It's what we do to farmed animals is like the worst thing we could possibly do to anyone. It's inconceivable that we do it and that it's okay. It's not okay, of course, but that is legal. Let's put it that way. It's very shocking. It's very shocking, and you sort of can't prepare for the shock. You can deal with it afterwards. I find when I go into a farm or a place of animal use and abuse, I know that I have a very short amount of time to do an excellent job, to do a world-class quality job to make beautiful images, awe-inspiring, poignant, jaw-dropping images. It's so hard because the conditions are terrible, and sometimes we're trespassing. Like it's under the cover of night. Like there are so many things against you being able to take an excellent picture. You mentioned the kangaroo in the burned plantation earlier on. So that was also a hard image because I had to get that image quickly before she jumped away, and I did get the exact image that I wanted. There's just so much against us when it comes to animal photojournalism that I put my personal feelings away and I just focus on being very, very professional. And that doesn't mean that my empathy is closed off. It's not. And because it's not, I think that's one of the reasons that I take really good images, because I'm connected and I want to get connected. I'm going to stop there because I'm going to get you guys to bring me back to where we were.
I got goosebumps though listening to you because I can tell how passionate you are and how just these moments that you're witnessing are captured through the photo and people can connect with that even though they weren't actually there witnessing it.
And I think also we'll get to the course, the photo course that you do a bit later, but you do actually cover in your photo course a bit about getting emotionally prepared and what you can do. I'm doing your photography course. It is brilliant.
I need to do it.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon.
Okay. So let's turn it around on a little bit more of a positive note. And have you seen any examples where your photographs have directly led to some positive change for animals, maybe awareness or policy change or tangible action for animals?
Yes, I have. I'm very proud, and we are very proud as a team that we have made direct changes towards helping animals. But I do have to say, first and foremost, though, is that The main thing that we do at We Animals is shift culture, and that takes time. We educate people, and that filters down slowly into society. And right now in the animal advocacy movement, there's a lot of demand for data for clear change. We see that campaigners are trying to reduce the number of chickens in cages in the US by a percentage, for example. And we have a lot of goals like that. But that's what we contribute to their campaigns. But at We Animals, it's education, it's culture shifting. And so it really is a long game here for us. And we know that it's working because of the change we've created so far, because our work is used internationally, and we get just mountains of feedback every day about how the work is changing people. Now, back to your question though, we love working with campaigners. We look at who's organized, who has a good media strategy, who has a good policy change strategy. And I want to use a group in Taiwan as an example. They are called the Environment and Animal Society of Taiwan, EAST for short. And in 2018, my videographer, Kelly Guerin, and I went to spend a few weeks with them documenting factory farms. And we documented cage-laying duck farms. They use those images to start at the grassroots level and raise awareness about the fact that these ducks are being kept now in cages so that we could eat their eggs. I'm going to now look at my notes and read this because I don't want to miss a single detail. In 2019, they revealed these findings, our findings, in a big big national investigation, and a campaign calling on the Council of Agriculture to draft guidelines for the humane farming of ducks. This went on for a while. It went to the federal level, and on December 30th, 2021, after sustained pressure on elected officials, Taiwan issued a ban on new battery cage farms. And this was the first federal ban of its kind. And we have worked with other really effective NGOs. Two really quick examples was Karl Oszachovsky and I, he's a filmmaker. We were posing as buyers of macaques in Southeast Asia. We went to 3 farms, and the long story short is that the work was presented at the CITES convention in Geneva the following year, and as a result, 2 of the 3 farms we visited closed. And we see that when we do sustained work with organizations in countries who are working on a particular ban, like fur farming. And a nice story was that just maybe 2 years ago, I was shooting fur farming in Canada, specific farms, and then one of them was targeted and they closed a few weeks later because they had terrible media publicity. They had a few animals left, and they're like, you know what, we're done, we're out. Yes.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
just so brilliant. It's so good to hear success stories. And yeah, you guys are doing just incredible work. But so we're in a world where we're pretty much desensitized to suffering. Of course, in computer games, people go and shoot everybody, and you just think people just see violence and just don't really care anymore. But how do you make people feel something through a photograph? Because I know I look at your photographs and it hits me to the core. So how do you capture that? It's such a great art form.
Well, lots of ways. And we have to, in a way, emulate the great humanitarian photographs. When we look at lots of people, it's hard to connect. And when we look at one person, it's much easier. And so that's the same with animal photography. It's really important to do photo essays, though, not just have that eye contact, singular portrait image. We need to see the scope. We need to see the conditions. We need to see violence, physical violence, if we can capture that. And we need to see who is suffering. We need to see their postures. We need to understand ethology, the science of animal behavior. And that's a great tool in photography. So take a photo. How is the animal physically, and use science to back that up. But yeah, eye contact, composition, originality. Originality is really important. These are hard images that people don't want to look at. So you need to use all your tools in the toolbox to get people to return to the image. They're going to want to look away. So what can you have in that image to make them look again? It has to be a high quality image technically. It has to have really good color grading. We can't just take a picture and put it out into the world. You really have to get it on your screen and treat it like a painting. Start looking at the highlights and the lowlights and the contrast and make it into something even more beautiful. Create a connection and give information to the viewer. I used to think when I started that, oh, I'm going to go into farms and I'm going to show people pictures of hens in cages and they're going to say, I'm not going to support that, and they're never going to eat it again. But that's not how things go, unfortunately. Heartbreaking. What a lesson that was for me. And so we need to handhold people. We need to meet them where they're at. We need to not be judgmental. So when we show images at We Animals, when I show images to people around me, I'm not saying you did this. Look at this factory farm. You're taking part in this. That's not going to get you anywhere. So I remember that I ate animals for half my life, and I'm part of this culture and traditions. I know how hard it is to give up our traditions, and I know what it's like as well to be confronted with an image and then be very personally conflicted that like I contribute to this suffering. We, like to confront cruelty is to confront our complicity in it. And that's very hard for people. We will do anything to turn away, and some mental gymnastics, to make ourselves feel better about our potential complicity. So all of these things, wow, what a long answer for you. All of these things go into not only making a good image, but reaching people with those images.
Yeah, so important to touch on all of those things, because I think just to people who are maybe not photographers or not involved in capturing images, they possibly don't value everything that goes into creating a really impactful image. So it's good for you to explain all of the behind the scenes things you're thinking about, the editing process that all brings together an image that is really impactful and tells the story of the animals.
I think it's also interesting that you talked about how we relate to people, because of course we've all been there. None of us have grown up vegan. We've all taken part of the animal exploitation industry. It's interesting. Do you know the guy named Menke?
Yes, I just met him a few days ago.
Oh, wow.
We
love
him. We want him on the
need
podcast.
him on the podcast.
But he's got the free course that he's done, and he talks about how we can talk as better activists. I've done his free course. It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, he talked about, instead of accusing, we go, yes, we all used to do that. So you bring it back to a we situation rather than a point the finger situation. But I think going back into some of the stuff you've done, I think one of the most moving videos I saw was when you were sitting down in the free range barn with all the chickens and the chicken who climbed up on your lap. I had tears.
I haven't seen this one.
Oh, I had tears. I was just sitting there sobbing, going, oh my goodness, I just can't believe this. This is such an emotional feeling.
Thanks for pointing that out and for bringing me back to that moment. I have strangely laid down in many broiler farms, meat chickens, and when you do that, when you sit down or lie down, they just climb up on you, and they're curious. And when they're young, they haven't really learned to fear you too much yet. And you can sit there for a while, and sometimes you give them a little pet, and you just can't believe what's ahead for them. It's atrocious. We all need to know that they're like this. It comes back to my mom's chickens and the chickens in the farms. I mean, they're all the same.
Yeah. I couldn't do that. I'd be like, and you're in my jacket, and you're in my jacket, and you're in my pocket, and walking out looking like the Michelin Man with chickens.
Well, I think it's always really nice when I get to photograph an open rescue. Yeah,
that would be amazing.
It is. And then sometimes I just can't do that, or we can't do that. We're there to document, and we have a short amount of time. But it is very special when the activists can rescue some animals and get them to a sanctuary.
Well, this flows really nicely onto our next question. So you've often said that your goal is to make the invisible visible. What do you believe is still largely invisible to the public when it comes to animal exploitation?
I'd say it's namely factory farming,
Yeah.
the mass production of animals. They have absolutely miserable lives, so that we can, have this temporary pleasure. So I would say factory farmed animals and, the working animals. There are millions upon millions of working animals who don't have much of a life, whether it's in a fancy city like New York City or whether they are hauling bricks in Ethiopia or India. They need visibility, they need veterinary care. Um, and the animals who are in plain view, like the animals at rodeos, bullfights, aquariums, zoos, that's interesting because we can just pay for a ticket and go and see them, but we're not really seeing them. We're more there for our own pleasure, entertainment. We're not really thinking about the sentient animals. So it's always interesting to go in and to show a different point of view, because we could all be taking the same picture. All the people next to me, we could all be taking the same picture, but how can we enliven the image? How can we change the framing to show the animal, to really like center the non-human animal? And then there are the lab animals. I was in Mexico recently with a group called Te Protejo, and they work to reduce the number of animals in labs and the use of animals in labs. And incredibly, they got access to a few breeding facilities, and they brought me along. And there were tens of thousands of mice and rats living in tiny little boxes, being bred over and over. And once they reach a certain age, if they haven't been used on the dissection table or in medical research, they just get gassed. That's it. So their life was just, to live in a box and to reproduce. And they number, actually, I don't know what they number. I know that, it's in the millions in some countries, and certainly it must be in the billions. I don't know. But they are so unconsidered. And it's also so easy for us to buy products that are cruelty free. And we don't think to do it unless we've ever given a thought about the animals in breeding facilities and in labs. So it's also important for us to see those animals.
Mm.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up just before about aquariums and seeing fish in these not natural environments. We've just had a case in Sydney, in the Sydney Zoo, where they had 2 bull sharks in a small aquarium, and they both died from a collision
Injury.
Collision injury. And you go, bull sharks have such a wide range out in the ocean or out in wherever they live, and they've been jammed into this little aquarium, and they're all these people are shocked that this happened, and it's like, well, how can you be so shocked?
Well, even the aquarium was saying, oh, we're so saddened of the sudden death of these 2 bull sharks. And it's like, well, no, they've been ramming their head into glass for however long because they're trapped in a tank. It's not really a surprise that they've died from collision injuries.
And we've got SeaWorld on the Gold Coast that have polar bears who are showing repetitive stress behaviours. And they're not picking up on that. And they're supposed to be Australia's greatest, environmental or animal environmental organisation. But they can't see that their polar bears have stress-related anxiety. It's just crazy.
We never. I think that there is a place for zoos and aquaria, and that they need to evolve into places of compassionate conservation. There will always be a need for places where animals can be rehabilitated, and they don't need to be on display. We can take these, state-of-the-art facilities and all the vet care that they have and just do something for the animals instead of for us, and not be trapping wild animals and, bringing them and breeding them and culling them and transporting them and all the vicious things we do.
Well, I think this actually brings us nicely into our next question, because not only do you do photography which shows the horrors, but you also have some amazing photography that you've taken in sanctuaries and, places where they rehabilitate. But you also go and educate people. So you do workshops around the globe teaching animal organisations how to take impactful photos. You also have an online photography course, which I'm going through and I'm finding absolutely brilliant. I'm sitting there going, hang on, I thought I knew a whole lot of stuff about photography and suddenly I'm learning all these new things. So can you tell us more about that side of your journey?
Teaching is very important. Whenever we have skills and new skills that help others, we should impart those skills. And so we did create a masterclass. It has 8 episodes, self-guided, about how to cope, how to shoot, how to color edit. And there are not a lot of courses out there for like photojournalism, really. And it's not that intuitive. You kind of have to practice a lot to get that decisive moment, which is what Henri Cartier-Bresson sort of conceived of in the 40s with Magnum Photo Agency, like that moment, that's precise moment where you're capturing all the elements that make a good picture. It takes a while to do that, so people need training. Activists need training in photography. NGOs really benefit from it. So we have started a 2-day workshop. Also, before I say that, we do have photo critiques online on our YouTube channel, and it's where Kathy Moran, Keith Wilson, and I, really big name photo editors, just look at photos and dissect them and look at what works and what doesn't work. It's so much fun, and you can learn a lot through photo critiques. But what I was getting to is that we do now have a 2-day workshop, and that was actually funded by Voiceless, which is an Australian organization. So they gave us the seed funding to build and execute our first 2-day workshop, which was in Delhi, India. And we collaborated with an NGO and one of our photographers on the ground there, Shatabdi Chakrabarti. She's amazing. And so we had 2 days where we did teachings and photo critiques and sanctuary shoots where they would go out a couple times to the sanctuary and meals were provided. And at the end, we critiqued everyone's work and had a really good time doing it. Tons of questions, endless questions, good questions, so much enthusiasm. And so now these, I think it was like 25 students, now they are more equipped to go out and get better images for their campaigning. And we do want to replicate this globally. We're so excited about that. And I can come in virtually. I don't need to be flying all over the world doing these. And that is meant to, elevate the animal advocacy movement and the photos that we're creating for the movement.
I think I need to speak to Ondine and Kate from Voiceless, because I deal with them often, and say, I need you to fund Jo-Anne to come to Sydney. We need to do this 2-day workshop. You need to give her money now. But I think, I think one of your episodes in the online course that's really stuck with me, and funnily enough, it's probably not one you would think, is your gear episode. It's like what you take out into the field. And I love that you've got everything laid out and then you pack everything into your backpack. And I'm one of these people who over prepares and overtakes. And I see what you've done, and you compartmentalize everything really well and go, okay, I need this for this, I need this for this. I learned so much just from that one episode. It was really amazing. So I encourage everybody watching and listening to this episode, do the course. If you want to do photography and do animal rights photography, do the course. It's well worth it.
Thank you. The gear episode, the main thing about the gear episode is that my dog is in it, and I love that.
I love that too, yeah.
That's so funny. So I guess, could you dive in a little bit more to the topic of visual storytelling and explain how we can use visual storytelling to build empathy and drive meaningful change in our movement?
Well, I do have to do a lot of hand holding with the images to get people to look and to not turn away and to feel empathy. But the images need to be strong so that they read the caption or they read the essay. Storytelling is an ancient form of communication, as we know. It's not going anywhere, thank goodness. I think we just have to improve how we connect with the audience. First and foremost, I mean, that is a big tip I have for everyone in the movement. We are classically angry and rightfully so, at what's going on in the world. We have every reason to be angry, but studies have shown that trying to reach people through anger doesn't always work. And that doesn't mean don't be passionate. You can reach people through your passion, and that's different. But there are a lot of vehicles for photography and for short films and films. So I don't think we should limit ourselves to the most popular ones right now, which are, use on social media. It's important to make beautiful documentaries, and there are more and more of those. I was in a documentary just about a decade ago called The Ghosts in Our Machine, and I'm the protagonist.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, good. And it follows me as I do investigations globally. And the director, Liz Marshall, wanted someone in the hero role, the underdog. People like the hero stories, and they work time and time again. So have a protagonist, have an underdog, and you can tell a story that way. Books are also really important, especially in the photo world, because they simply influence, and they also memorialize. And we did a massive book called Hidden. It's a 5-pound tome, 40 photographers. We made this book because we wanted animals to have the kind of book, historical book, that humans do. All of the humanitarian conflicts and wars, like, they all have great big books. I decided animals were going to have those. Let me rephrase that. Animals were going to have such a book as well. So books and short films, exhibits. This book that we made, Hidden, it's called Hidden Animals in the Anthropocene. We didn't realize that so many people would want to exhibit that book, the work in that book. And so to this day, there are exhibits happening around the world where people can pick up the book and see the images from the book on the wall. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing how, what you're doing is reaching so many people now. But do you think animal photojournalism is being taken more seriously now as a form of investigative journalism, or are we still seen as fringe voices?
Oh, we have a long, long, steep hill ahead of us. I think we are still quite fringe, but that is changing. Quick shout out to Farm Transparency Project in Australia. Brilliant people doing innovative and excellent work. And of course, visuals are one of the main tools for them. And I admire them very much. I will say that things are changing in the wildlife and conservation world. There are more people interested in APJ. In Wildlife Photographer of the Year, which is a major competition, the photojournalism category is the fastest growing category in terms of submissions, and also popularity is what I've heard. And so things need to go in that direction, but there is a lot of pushback from photo editors and media outlets because APJ is activist in nature. It's just unavoidable. People do it because they want to change things. And of course, that is not always acceptable in the mainstream media world. And that is a long and inglorious conversation about objective versus subjective journalism. And with APJ, as I said, this is subjective work. And so it can be rejected just on those grounds alone. I've had plenty of photo editors say, this is beautiful work and this is important work, but we can't publish it because you have an agenda.
Disappointing, but
I'm also not surprised. Maybe one day.
And We Animals is ushering in that one day. We are talking with media, we're pushing back, we're doing things differently. And also, one of the next things that I will be doing with my colleague, Martin Rowe, he was the founder of Lantern Media. He's a publisher and a writer. So we want to do a deep dive into APJ. Just because we coined it and said it's a thing doesn't mean it really is out in the world. Now, we do know that APJs call themselves that. We know that there's more writing about it, but we want to interview the photo editors, the journalists who love us and who hate us. We want to interview the people who think it has a future and those who think it doesn't. We want to learn all about this, because if we're going to call our next book animal photojournalism, an anthology. Like, we better be sure that animal photojournalism is actually a thing. It has a place in history, and I hope that our research finds that it does, and I think it will. But we really want to push and pull against what this is in order to strengthen it.
That's a good tactic. I like it. So we've spoken a lot about your work with wee animals, but who is Jo behind the lens? What do you do outside of wee animals?
Nothing.
Yeah. Do you actually have a life that exists from behind the
We're
camera?
the same. We work too much.
Yeah.
No, I have a slightly better answer than that, but the truth is that I'm extremely dedicated and passionate about my work, and it takes up most of my time. And for the most part, that's okay. But the Jo who's not working on wee animals is enjoying the humble sides of life, whether it's cooking a good meal or reading an amazing book, or just being out in my tiny little garden, or going for a run, and spending time with my partner Joseph. Um,
And playing with your gorgeous dog.
Banjo passed away. Rest in peace. Banjo.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear.
Thank you. He was a very complicated old man when I adopted him, and remained so until his dying day. And
he was gorgeous.
Now, he was. And I really like fostering animals. I've fostered so many animals in my life. So the last foster I got, Frankie, I had him for a month, and then my neighbors 2 doors down adopted him. So I can literally hear him barking, and I can just go over and say, hey, can I have Frankie for the afternoon?
That's so nice.
She's a foster failure.
Yeah. I've done a lot of cat rescue, and my 2 cats now are foster fails.
Oh, wow.
And there could be number 3 coming in soon.
There's a stray that has decided my front yard is a really great place to sleep. And they just know, don't they? They just find the house. They're like, she looks like, she might
crazy
take
cat
me
lady.
in. So I'm feeding her, and I'm gonna try and trap her soon.
So it's another connection we have. We're both being street cat rescuers. So
it's wonderful. Well, smart cats finding you.
Yeah, they do. They just show up.
Now, if you could wave a wand and have the world to understand just one truth about animals, what would it be?
Yeah, I feel like there's an easy answer here, almost too easy, but anyone who is sentient should not be harassed and held captive and tortured and killed. And I wish for everyone to not just understand that intellectually, but to believe it. And you asked about, what I'm doing when I'm not doing wee animals. I'm also a humble student of Buddhism. And my teacher, Tashi Nima, a wonderful man who actually has a documentary being made about him by a group called Sanctuary Doc. And he is a vegan, and he speaks a lot with vegan activists, and he helps us cope. And Tashi, in the last retreat, had formulated these 3 sentences that I wish I could just ask to everyone. I wish I could go up to everyone on the street and ask, and I have them here, ask these 3 sentences. And I have this just nice dream that I could do that and change people. And the first question is, do you think it would be wonderful if all beings could be happy and free from suffering? And probably they would say yes. Next question is, do you wish for all beings to be happy and free from suffering? I think a lot of people would say yes. The next question is harder, but you nevertheless get to ask it. Would you take responsibility for helping all these beings be happy and free from suffering? And ask, is it a small ask? It depends on the person. It depends what mental gymnastics they're going to do then and there. But I think, a lot of people would say, yeah, I could take some responsibility for reducing their suffering.
Yeah. Wow.
That's amazing questions. Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's just got me sitting here thinking.
Me too. So what are you currently working on, Jo, that you're excited about?
Well, I will say that I am often behind my desk and taking part in moving all of the parts of wee animals forward every day. It's like my arms are outstretched and I'm going, okay, okay, little steps. And sometimes that's really exciting. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, this is a long way away from the life I used to have as a freelance photojournalist. I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. But I mean, I am doing what I want, and I just have a team doing it. And all of these photographers. And at any given time, we have photographers out in the world doing assignments. We're bringing in images that the advocacy space can use. And that's really, really exciting. And I think probably the most exciting for me is when I connect with our animal photojournalists one-on-one and go over their work or give them some tips, and they always feel really fired up afterwards. So that's really lighting me up. I shoot less now, and the plan is to be doing a lot more writing. I have 3 or 4 books that I could, if I was given the funding, I would, and the time and the space, and my team as well, I'd be like, 3 or 4 books that I could easily create. So I think that's the next chapter for me. Not no shooting, just less shooting, more writing, and more founder duty. I love being a representative of We Animals. I love what we do, and I'm passionate about it, and I believe in it. So I love to be out in the world, promoting it, sharing our stories, sharing the incredible stories that our photographers are bringing back every day.
Well, I am so glad that you got away from wedding photography.
Me too.
In a past life, in one of my past incarnations, I was also a wedding photographer, and it just did my brain in. It was horrible. But I'm so glad that you've become the animal photographer and the person who is just inspiring so many people. But speaking of inspiration, how do you want We Animals to be remembered like 100 years from now?
That's not a question I've given a lot of thought to. And I would like us to have had a lot of influence culturally. Of course, I want those wins, like the example I gave with the group called East in Taiwan. But I want We Animals to have changed a lot of minds and opened a lot of hearts. And our forebears, like Magnum Photo Agency and Seven and Noor, like they're producing incredible work that changes the course of history. We can think of many images that have, reached everyone's living room and created an incredible discussion and culture shifts, policy shifts. So I know, because We Animals has already begun doing that we will continue to do that. And we will be seen in 100 years from now as an organization that contributed to total animal liberation. We'll have achieved it by then, right?
Yeah, this is what we love to hear.
And APJ will be a legitimately recognized thing.
Well, I actually foresee APJ as being the magnum of our world now. And people are going to look back and go, oh, yeah, there was Magnum in the 40s, but hey, look at what happened in the 2000s. We had We Animals, and the quality of work, because I was a student of Magnum, as in looking at all their stuff and trying to gain whatever I could. But I think people are going to be looking back at We Animals and going, wow, this is amazing. This is brilliant. And of course, the work of people like Farm Animal Transparency and Joey Carbstrong, who are doing amazing work in photojournalism and video journalism. They will look back at these, I'd call them pioneering people in the animal rights movement, yourself included. It's just been amazing work.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to remind you that you mentioned maybe reading a poem. Maybe you wanted to end by sharing that with us.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd share this with you. So I've mentioned our book, Hidden Animals in the Anthropocene, and here it is.
Wow.
Yeah. Big book, expensive to ship. There's an image that is one of the most violent images in the book. I won't show it to you, but I'll describe it. And it's in a slaughterhouse, and there's a man wielding a club, and he's bringing that club down upon the head of the pig, and the pig is on her knees. Her eyes are closed, and she's screaming. There's a man holding a knife. He's holding a bowl of blood. It's one of the most incredible photos that I've ever taken. It's not one that I'm known for because it's so violent and people see the other images more. All of the images in this book are precisely placed to flow through the book. And many images have an image opposite it, but this one, I just wanted it to stand alone. But there's a blank page, and I needed to take time to think about what I wanted on that blank page, because we have no blank pages in the book. It's chock block with facts and figures and captions and photos. And I mentioned being a student of Buddhism, and there was also a student of Buddhism named Shantideva, 8th century, and he wrote some pretty incredible books on Buddhism, including a very, very, very long poem, many hundreds of pages. But from that very long poem is these 8 lines. And I remember just taking an entire weekend to think about, what do I want opposite of this very violent picture? And I went to Shantideva and I saw this and I was like, this is it. This is what's going there. And you'll understand why. And it is a poem, but it's a prayer. And it's also a reflection of my desires in the world, for the world and for myself. It reads, "May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world."
Wow.
Very impactful.
Yeah, that is, very powerful.
I've got goosebumps.
Yeah. Don't look at my arms because I have too.
Hard to read that without my voice cracking, I will say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with the photo in front of you as well, and such that connection between the two.
Absolutely. Now, where can our listeners find your work, support your mission, or learn more about We Animals?
Most of that is in one place, and it's easy. It's weanimals.org, and not WEE as in small animals, but we as in us. weanimals.org, and that is our Instagram, our Facebook as well. They're both We Animals. And I want people to know that they have this amazing resource at We Animals. It's our stock platform. Thousands, tens of thousands of images and videos that anyone can use for free in service of their work to help animals. And we exist because we have financial support, big grants and monthly donors and one-time gifts. And so people can go to the website if they're interested in supporting us and keeping our photographers in the field and keeping this big machine running.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's been amazing to have you on the podcast. And I already knew a little bit about the work that you are doing, but just to hear it in great detail and hear how you've built such a massive team of animal photojournalists as well. Your work has such an impact and it's rippling out in the movement. And if people are still using bad photos of animals, there's no excuses.
Well, Jo, we can't thank you enough for coming onto the podcast today. We feel very honoured and privileged to have had so much time with you. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you do, for being an inspiration. Thank you for your course. Please, everybody, get online, do that course. If you want to do animal photojournalism, this is the course you've got to follow. So, Jo, thank you. We love you. We love everything you do.
I'm humbled and I'm inspired. I'm just so happy to meet you and spend this time with you. You're doing great things in the world. And thank you on behalf of all of We Animals for getting our work out even farther.
Our pleasure.
Well, folks, this brings us to the end of just a stunning episode. And as we always say, we do this podcast because, oh my goodness, we feel just so inspired after speaking to all our guests. You know, we might walk in here going, oh, we're a bit tired, but now I'm wide awake going, wow, wow, wow.
You can't wipe the smiles off our face, really.
So, folks, thanks again for being with us. And we will be back next week with another fabulous guest. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Vegan Compass podcast, unveiling truths, inspiring change.
Be sure to follow us on social media at @thevegancompass_podcast. See you next time.